Please welcome the director of B. Kenneth Simon Center for Principles and Politics at the Heritage Foundation, David Azerrad.
Good morning, everyone. In 1975, former Governor Ronald Reagan sat down with an interview with the editors of Reason magazine, the flagship libertarian publication in America. At the time, the former governor had taken to calling himself a libertarian conservative, and the editors of Reason were curious to know what he meant by this. Here's what he told them. I believe that the very heart and soul of conservatism is libertarianism. The basis of conservatism is a desire for less government or more individual freedom, and this is a pretty general description also of what libertarianism is, end quote. Now, Reagan, in that very same interview, went on to fight with the editors of Reason magazine over the legitimacy of the FDA, the income tax, fire departments, you name it. Reagan was not a libertarian, and when he became president, he did not govern as a libertarian. Let me remind you, for example, that he imposed tariffs on Japanese motorcycle imports to give Harley-Davidson time to modernize their production lines. Let me remind you that he brought an end to the Cold War through an aggressive military buildup and a confrontational foreign policy with the USSR. So here is a red-blooded, patriotic, conservative American who nevertheless oftentimes spoke like a libertarian. This, I find, is a common problem that we have on the right in America. We live like Tocquevillians, but we talk and think like Randians. We are enamored with a set of libertarian ideals that do not do justice to who we are, and ultimately threaten this country we love so much. I want to make clear that I don't have a problem with the label libertarian, especially when you consider that so much of what passes for conservatism in America, especially in the swamp where I live, is really just watered-down liberalism. A lot of conservatives in DC have come to define conservatism as whatever the left wants except a little bit less of it, or whatever the left wants except whatever they wanted 20 years ago. No wonder many patriotic Americans who care about limited government have become turned off by conservatism and say, you know what, I'm a libertarian. My problem lies not with the label libertarian, but with the ideology of libertarianism. A radical ideology that fetishizes freedom and would sacrifice America at the altar of individualism. I have a problem with the simplistic and simple-minded dogma that teaches people to hate the government more than they love their country. I have a problem with an economic theory that is masquerading as a political theory. As I always remind my libertarian friends, it's called the United States of America, not the United Markets of America. There are many, many reasons to oppose libertarianism. But if I had to sum it up in the clearest, simplest possible terms, I would say it is completely unsustainable. Just think with me, let's think out loud, of what would happen to this country of ours that we love so much if we implemented full-blown libertarianism. Number one, no more borders. We would have to have unlimited immigration. After all, as the libertarians tell us, why should the government restrict the right of people to move freely? Why should the government tell corporations who they're allowed to hire? By, I think, the most conservative estimate, you would have at least 1 billion people who would want to move to America. After all, most people are not so lucky to live in a well-governed, free country such as ours. They had the misfortune of being born in poor and corrupt countries and would rather move here. Libertarianism requires the abolition of borders, and without borders, you don't have a country. As President Trump has said time and time again, you either have a country or you don't. You either have borders or you don't. The second thing that would happen is over the long term, we would see the rebarbarization of our country. You know who doesn't need strong laws to tell them how to behave? The Amish in Lancaster County. Hasidic Jews in Crown Heights, liberals who live in super zips, all the Americans who are lucky enough to have been born in strong communities with strong families and strong moral guardrails. But what about the rest of our fellow citizens who are not that lucky? Just look, think about it. Since the 1960s, we've kind of implemented libertarianism in parts of America. We have deregulated the culture, liberalized sexuality, and allowed the country to be flooded with hard drugs. Look at the results. The broken homes, the parents who neglect and abandon their children, the rampant crime, the ruined lives, and the devastation. Now, if there are any libertarians in the audience right now, they must be saying, "Oh my God, what is this crazy guy saying? Surely you don't want to legislate morality." To which I would say, what else are you going to legislate? Theology? Aesthetics? Science? Of course not. The only thing there is to legislate is morality. The issue is, which kind of morality do you want to legislate? Do you want to impose on the country selfish, anti-political, libertarian morality that has no concern for the well-being of its fellow citizens or for the well-being of future generations? Or do you want to legislate sustainable, conservative morality that wants to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity? This line, which comes from the preamble to our Constitution, to me, constitutes the mission statement for America and is the clearest, most concise definition of conservatism I can think of: to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. It teaches us two things about America. First of all, there's a difference between liberty and the blessings of liberty. Liberty should not be confused with license. Not all uses of liberty will yield blessings. Under the Constitution, allow me to remind you that the states have broad police powers to legislate for the public health, safety, and morals of the people. We should never confuse limited government for libertarian government. Second, we want the blessings of liberty not just for ourselves, but for posterity. We are trustees. We are custodians. We inherited this country, and it is our task to pass it on to the next generation. That means that there has to be another generation, and this has very much become a problem in America and throughout the developed world. Our fertility rate is at an all-time low. We, like the rest of the West, seem to be losing the will to live. And it's not enough to have children. You need to raise them in such a way that they too are capable of passing on these blessings to the next generation. These children must be raised in such a way that they too can create another generation of hardworking, God-fearing, law-abiding, patriotic Americans. That's why conservatives are so concerned with the generative family, with private morality, and with civic virtue. I would put it to you this way. I think we, each and every one of us, has done our job, our duty as American citizens, when we have grandchildren who think and act like Americans, by which I mean we have transmitted our inheritance so well, and the test of transmission is those to whom you gave it, did they in turn give it to the next generation? In sum, I'm a conservative and not a libertarian because I believe not just in liberty, but in sustainable liberty. Liberty not just for me, but for generations to come. I'm a conservative because I realize that there is no such thing as a social issue. By the way, I can't tell you how much I hate that term. It implies that there are serious people who do foreign policy and economic policy, and then there are Christians and old people who play around with the social issues. They're not social issues, they're posterity issues. Each and every one of them is concerned with transmission, with children, with the next generation. I'm a conservative and not a libertarian because I believe that order doesn't just appear spontaneously if people are left free to indulge in whatever their hearts may desire. I'm a conservative because I realize that Republican self-government is a rare and fragile flower. And I am not so foolish as to believe that all it takes to keep America going is more liberty and less government. Thank you. God bless.